welcome to another amazing episode of the HealthyU podcast. My name is Dawn Funk. I'm coming to you live down here in sunny Florida. And man, am I fired up today because we've got another amazing guest that is going to bring so much value, so much passion, and so much wisdom. And I'm really fired up about today's topic because honestly, it is one that we have not talked about yet on this podcast, but one that I think is super, super important. And so it is the importance of mental health. And guys, I just hope you have a journal if you're at home or at the office on your lunch break or wherever, so that you can take some great notes. And I would imagine too, as you're listening today, that you're probably going to have some people that are going to be put on your heart that you're like, oh, I need to share this with them. So please make sure you go to dawnfunk.com, click on HealthyU, and that's where we keep all of the episodes. So I know that this is going to be one that you're going to want to share with family, friends, coworkers. So again, just super excited for our guest, Desiree Argentina, which is like the coolest name ever. So I'm just so excited for you guys to get to know her. And she, just by the way, is a licensed clinical social worker, which right there just tells me that your heart has to be massive, just for what you do and just how you serve people. And so she is coming to us from Denver, Colorado, and she works with not only kids and teens, but also with families. And so I told Desiree before we dive into the questions, I just wanted her to just share some more cool stuff about herself and just really connect with all of us today. So Desiree, go ahead and take it away.
Oh, well, thank you for the introduction, Dawn. I'm so excited to speak with you. So yeah, I'm Desiree, and I just moved to Colorado 3.5 years ago from New York, and I love to travel. So it's my goal to see all 50 states and get out of the country at least once a year. Some years I'm able to, some I'm not, but that's one of my passions is traveling. And I'm also a crazy cat lady. I love cats, and I have 4 of my own. I only had 2, but I just acquired 2 more by accident. So we do, my boyfriend and I, we foster and we run a cat rescue on the side, and we've been doing that since 2014. So we do trap, neuter, release of feral cats. We socialize feral kittens that are able to be socialized, and we volunteer and foster through shelters.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing. Well, and I was telling you before we started the podcast that I have 2 rescue dogs, Scooby and Shaggy. And it's so funny. I had one dog. Well, I had 2 dogs, and we went to Ireland. So I love to travel too. And unfortunately, when we were over in Ireland, my big chocolate lab ended up getting a twisted stomach. And it was heartbreaking. So he had to be put down while we were out of the country.
Oh
So sad.
no.
But my kids were all home, and they got to go to the vet with our friends and, have some final moments. But so then we were down to just one little miniature toy poodle. Well, then I was like, our dog needs a friend. So we got a second little dog, Bandit, and my husband was not happy. And then literally within a couple months, I rescued these 2 puppies who are now 100 pounds each. They're huge. But I tell you what, there's something special about rescue animals. And that's so cool that you and your boyfriend do that. So again, like I said, she's got a huge heart. I knew it. And I didn't even know that you had this rescue thing that you guys
didn't.
did.
No.
So that's like right there. Okay. Totally makes sense. So thank you just for sharing all that today, Desiree. All right, well, let's dive in, like I said, to the actual topic, which is the importance of mental health. And, so I guess my first question for you today is just, why is mental health so important? And let's have you expand on that.
Yeah, well, I think, mental health is so important. And I think, podcasts like this that are talking about it are so important because we really need to spread awareness and kind of destigmatize mental health, because mental health is health. It's just as important as your physical health. I know this is kind of the cliche that people say, but if you have a broken arm, you go to the doctor. So if you're feeling depressed or anxious, that's something that needs to be treated as well, because a lot of mental health illnesses, a lot of mental health issues, they don't just go away on their own. You need either therapy or specialized treatment. If you have experienced trauma, there's great treatments for trauma out there now, like EMDR. I mean, these are things that can really help. And our mental health affects every aspect of our lives, our well-being. It affects us emotionally, psychologically, our social well-being. It affects how we think, how we feel, our behaviors. So if you're having mental health issues, it's going to affect every aspect of your life. And a lot of people that struggle with mental health, it manifests sometimes as physical symptoms. So if you're feeling anxious or depressed, you're having sleep issues, you're overly tired, you're sleeping a lot, you can't sleep at all, you're having digestive issues. A lot of mental health affects your digestive system, and it just affects every aspect of your life. You'll get headaches, stomach aches, physical pains. So it's so important to be aware of.
No, that's so good. Well, and it just takes me back. I was sharing with you a little bit before the show that I had breast implant illness. And to your point, I lived in a lot of fear during that season. And, because I had so many crazy, weird symptoms. But then after I removed the toxicity and started healing, like I noticed that I now know what they're called. I was replaying a lot of just the symptoms and issues, and I became kind of almost a little bit paranoid, honestly, at every ache and pain. And I remember someone saying that they're called old wire loops, owls. Like I just was replaying these old wire loops in the morning. I would wake up and be like, okay, what doesn't feel good today? And it was like the stress and the fear was creating these ongoing symptoms. So I know firsthand, just kind of what you're talking about. And, it's hard, to go through that. But at the same time, like you said, you have to get help, and you need to be intentional about that. So, so good. All right. So what are some ways that someone can work on improving their mental health? So if they are in kind of one of these, funk seasons of funk, I'll use my last name here, but what are some ways that they can improve that?
Right. So I would definitely recommend seeking out a therapist. Or if you need medication, talking to your doctor. If you're a child or teenager in school, talking to the school counselor, school social worker, or a trusted friend or adult about the issues you're going through. But if you just want some tips on improving your mental health in your everyday life, I would say one of the most important aspects of improving your mental health is building strong boundaries with the relationships in your life, or with school or with work, especially for those that work from home. So building strong boundaries is super, super important because, right, we do teach people how to treat us, and we have to let people know what's okay and what's not. So standing up for ourselves, being assertive, eating healthy. Your diet has a huge impact on your mental health. And I know that's not accessible for everyone. And, fast food is everywhere and it's so easily accessible. It's cheap. But if you could try to fit in fruits and veggies, that is so, so important. Getting regular physical activity, whether that's, a hard workout or just going for a walk every day, getting outside, getting in the sun, taking a walk. Volunteering is a great way to improve your mental health, whether that's, with animals, with people, collecting donations. I mean, just working with your community and fostering those connections does a great deal for your mental health, and it really improves your self-worth and your self-confidence. And being mindful of your self talk is very important. The way we talk to ourselves has a huge impact on the way we look at ourselves and feel about ourselves, but also on our outlook on the world. So, being mindful of that negative self talk and paying attention to, are you usually putting yourself down? Are you lifting yourself up? Are you complimenting yourself? Are you talking badly about yourself, calling yourself ugly, stupid? When you make a mistake, what is your reaction to that mistake? Do you forgive yourself for making that mistake? Do you realize that it's a normal part of life, or do you really get down on yourself for making little mistakes? Watch what you take into your life and what you consume. So not only food wise, but also just media wise, social media, what you read, what you bring into your brain, because that also impacts the way you see the world and see yourself as well. And, like we were saying, the world's just been, a little out of control lately. And I just think a part of that is that everything is at our fingertips. You open up any social media and it just feels like doom and gloom. So being mindful of that, and just also paying attention to those algorithms. So especially on Instagram and TikTok, they're very tailored to you. So if you're watching negative news or whatever the case may be, negative stories, they're going to keep feeding those kind of things to you. So being mindful of that, the algorithms and what you're intaking on social media, maybe try to do like less time on social media, or do kind of these phone free times, such as during meals with your family, things like that. So just being mindful of what you consume and how it's affecting your mental health.
That's so good. So many great tips. Oh my gosh, you're like firing off so many.
I should
And
slow down.
no, it's so good. Well, and to your point, like the social media, one thing that I've changed is I don't bring my phone to bed anymore. Like
Right.
I charge my phone out in the kitchen. I just don't bring it in. I don't want social media to be the last thing that I'm doing before I go to bed or when I wake up in the morning. And that was a big change for me. Um, the other thing too, what were you saying about social media? Oh, just I just want to remind you guys that a lot of the posting on social media, you're seeing people's highlight reels, right? And I know sometimes, you talked about confidence, that sometimes, we have to remind ourselves that, everyone's life is not perfect and we cannot compare ourselves to that. And so something that I'm very intentional about as much as I can is like posting stuff that's like real life struggles, things on social media, just being more authentic and not always just trying to post highlight stuff, and just trying to, just show people that, hey, you know what, like we all have real life stuff. In fact, I just posted a picture yesterday. My kids, we were taking some family pictures before my daughter's birthday, and literally they caught me pulling up my dress with like my spandex like hanging out. And I was like, oh my God, that awkward moment, like when your kids take like the most embarrassing picture ever. But it happens. So again, don't be afraid to share the real you. But I love all of your tips. And I want to add too, like especially with you and what you do with your rescue, I'm telling you what, having pets helps my mental health. Like my dogs, even though when they were little, they were crazy, but now I'm like, man, whenever I'm having a bad day, I just go smooch and hug one of my dogs and they make me feel better. So I'm sure pets are a great way too. And then I just wanted to throw in too, I'm a big believer right here. You can see my Rocky picture right below or above me, and just having words of affirmation or positive quotes. In fact, sometimes I do these in my closet, which behind in the wall of my closet are all these signs that are just loaded with positivity and affirmations, because the words that we speak over ourselves are so important. And, it's a daily intentional decision to wake up and speak life over yourself, because we get beat up every single day. So so many great ideas. I so loved all of those. So all right, so now moving on, like how can someone implement self-care? So I know you talked about the importance of going to the doctor, getting help, absolutely, but you know on a regular daily basis, what are some things that we can do to implement that self-care?
Yeah, absolutely. So with self-care is tough, right? Because especially if you're a parent, if you have a family, if you have a full-time job, we feel like we have so many responsibilities, so many obligations, and so often people put their needs last.
Mhm.
So you cause burnout that way. I mean, self-care is not only important, I mean, it's vital, it's necessary, because you only have so much energy to give.
Mhm.
So it's so, so important to practice self care, because you're going to burn yourself out if you're always putting your needs last. So I like to think of self care as 8 different areas of self care. So there's physical self care, emotional self care, financial, occupational, spiritual, social, environmental or space, and personal self care. So I would say within those different areas of self care, kind of take an inventory of your life. Which areas are you really struggling in or lacking in self care? Maybe that's physical activity. Maybe that's personal, hobbies, things you do to grow and enrich your own life. Maybe that's social connections, spending time with friends. Maybe you're having a really hard time financially. So maybe you need to take a look at your finances, maybe budget. So all these different areas of self care, they're going to mean something different to you. So go over a little inventory of your life in these 8 different areas, and take a look at where you're really lacking, where you're really struggling, where you need to implement more self-care in that area, and start out very, very small, because you can't look at all of these 8 areas and say, I'm going to implement all 8 areas of of self-care. It's just not possible. And then you set yourself up for failure. So maybe again, look at that inventory, pick one area of self-care that you want to implement. And a lot of these areas have kind of subsets. They have different categories within them. So say if it's physical self-care, you know what? I don't work out at all. All I do is sit all day. I sit at a desk and then I commute. I sit in the car on my way home. I'm going to implement an hour of exercise a week.
Mm-hmm.
And that's it. Or I'm going to go for a 10-minute walk every day. Just start out very small. And you may say, okay, but within that physical realm, I'm also really struggling with how I eat. I eat like crap. All I eat is fast food. So maybe work on one at a time and then move on to the other area. So all these different areas are going to mean something different to you. So that's just something each person is going to have to look at within their own life.
Those are so good. Well, and not to back you up, but I was writing and I want to make sure that our listeners hear all 8 of those again. So you said, because I love this, taking inventory. And like you said, like you're not going to do all 8 at the same time because that would be overwhelming. But let's hit those again. So you said physical, emotional, financial, and then keep going. Sorry.
Occupational.
Okay, occupational. Because I know
and I have them written down too, because I always leave one out every time.
Oh, no, you're good. Well, and I'm like, there's probably some nerds like me taking notes. So occupational. Okay, next
spiritual.
one.
And again, spiritual, people get a little hung up on, but that again, all of these are going to mean something different to you.
Right.
Spiritual doesn't necessarily mean you have to go to church and pray. That could mean you want to spend more time in nature or meditate or be more mindful. So again, these are what they mean to you.
Yes.
So spiritual, social,
okay,
environment or space.
Oh, expand.
You're kind of, so the way I'll just tell you the last one and then I'll get back to that one. Personal. So the last one is personal.
Oh, personal.
So environment or space, the way we live, our room, our space, whether you live in a house, an apartment, a studio, I feel like it just really impacts your mental health. So say you work at home, maybe to improve your mental health, you want to have a clean desk space and you want to put your desk next to a window to get sunlight.
Don't look at my desk right now.
Mine looks the same, trust me. Yeah. So that's why I have this thing up here. So, but that again is going to mean something different to everybody too. What makes you feel good in your space? Like you said, hanging quotes, hanging positive affirmations, just making your space comfortable and positive for you, whatever that looks like for you, making it comfortable. If you love fuzzy blankets or pillows, or if you like, perfect. If you like a lot of sunlight, if you like a lot of plants. So again, that's going to mean something different to you, but our space does impact our mental health. And again, look at what impacts your mental health. It could be different for everybody. For me personally, when the dishes are overflowing, it really affects me and I can't stop thinking about it. So just things like that, pay attention to what is affecting you in your personal space.
Yeah, that's so good. Well, and just for the record, dirty dishes do not bother me one bit. I'm so weird. And, but like other little annoying things, like I have to vacuum like every day. Like I got to run the vacuum.
Well, with the pets, because I have 4 cats, so you have to vacuum every day.
Yes, I'm like OCD with running the vacuum.
Especially now, I don't know about your dogs, but my cats are shedding like insanity.
Mine are too. It's crazy. Yeah, but no, that's so good and that's so important. And it's funny how you said everyone like you got to do you, right? And so like I did have my office little area over on the other side by the window. But the problem was I was staring out the window all day at my pool and going, oh, I just want to be outside in my pool. So I was like, I got to get away from that window. So now I'm like over here in the corner so I don't see it. But
and you have your great posters and everything. So that's great. Whatever works for you.
Oh, my husband's like, oh my gosh, are we really moving your desk again? I'm like, yes, we are. But to your point, like, I took inventory and I was like, okay, this isn't working for me. So again, it's just taking ownership of your kind of mental state with this great inventory and going, you know what, I need to make some changes. But again, start small and start simple. And I love that. So, okay, perfect. All right. So moving on here, what are some healthy coping skills? And I told you before we started, like, I know, and I've been guilty of this. There was a season of my life when all 4 of my kids were like tiny. I had 4 kids in 5 years. And so it was very stressful. So I ate a lot of double stuffed Oreos. That was my coping mechanism back then. Now I realize that's not healthy. So we want to help the listeners with some healthy coping skills that aren't going to fluff them up or cause harm or anything like that. So what ideas do you have for that today?
Right. Yeah. So I think I'm guilty of it as well, of all these, there's just so many unhealthy coping skills available to us, right? So it's so easy to fall into that. And it takes a little extra work to have those healthy coping skills. So I totally understand. So that's why I think it's important to kind of have almost like a toolbox. Like you could either have like a physical kind of container or something with your healthy coping skills, or just have a list of things that make you feel good. So again, this is going to be different for every person. You have to find what works best for you. But so I have these in kind of little categories as well. So I think physical coping skills are great. And again, it depends on the person. So whether that's working out, stretching, yoga, doing like muscle exercises. So you could like squeeze your fists like this really, really tight and then like release. You could do that with your whole body and like take deep breaths. So different physical coping skills are really great, especially when it comes to anger. Releasing that angry energy in a physical way is really helpful. So if you have a punching bag or punching a pillow or doing jumping jacks, that's really great. So things like that. If you like mindful coping skills, so something like maybe journaling, meditation, some deep breathing, or reading. So that's really great too. Those different reflections. There's so many great apps that you could use, or even podcasts. I personally love Tracks to Relax. I always use that for meditation. That's really calming and relaxing. There's the Calm app, there's Headspace. You could even go on YouTube and find, relaxing meditative sounds. So that's really great. Expression. So again, you could do some creative writing, you could journal, do something creative. If you love music, you could write lyrics, or if you like to paint, you could paint out your feelings, express them in that sort of way, doing something creative with your hands. Some people really love baking. So it depends again on what you prefer and what makes you feel good. Getting outdoors, going for a walk is a great coping skill. Gardening, just sitting outside, getting some sun, getting some fresh air. And then this is more of what I like to do. So my coping skill is more of those like connections. So again, you said if you don't have any friends or family available to you, pets are a great coping skill. Petting your pet, your little furry friend, that's really great for your mental health. So I like to do that. So that's a really great way to foster a positive connection in those times where you're not feeling so great. I really like to vent to friends. So I'm a venter, so that makes me feel better. So that's something you could do as well, reaching out to a friend or family. So there's all different areas that you could do. There's all sort of different coping skills, healthy ones that you could use, but it's so important to know what works for you before you need the coping skill, right? Because a lot of times when we're in that highly emotional state, not feeling good, need to make ourselves feel better right away, we just typically go to an unhealthy coping skill that just something that's easily available to us. And even so, this is one that can be healthy or unhealthy. Two of them actually, depending on how you use them. But one being watching TV. So if you take a quick break, you watch something really funny for 30 minutes to an hour, that's fine. But if you're kind of disassociating and just just kind of streaming something for hours on end on the couch, that's not so healthy, right? And that goes the same for sleep. If you take a quick 20-30 minute nap to kind of reset, feel better, that's great. But if you go to sleep for hours and hours, that's maybe not so healthy. So again, looking at these coping skills and kind of figuring out the line for you and what works best for you.
Yeah, those are so many great ideas. Thank you so much. And it's interesting how you said you're a venter, right? And so you like to call up your friends. Well, I'm the complete opposite. Like I only vent to my poor husband. God love him. And it's like he is my sounding board. Like I'm not one to like just pick up and call my friends and do that, but my poor husband gets the brunt of that. And I didn't even share this with you, but I'm literally getting ready to open up a cookie cottage down here in Florida by the beach that I live at. And so that is one of my things in my toolbox is I love to bake and I love to decorate cookies. And it's so funny because I've been doing an online community for years, teaching people how to do it. And a lot of them are like, it's a lot of hard work. It's stressful. And I'm like, to me, I'm like sitting there decorating a cookie and filling it in. It's like so calming and peaceful. And I listen to music or podcasts. And so it's funny how for some people it's like so stressful, but for people like me, I'm like, I love doing my cookies. But
Right,
yes,
exactly.
I know. But I love all of your ideas and just a couple more that have been helpful. I just would love to throw into your list. I love doing grounding. So just getting out barefoot, walking in the grass, going to the beach. It's been really helpful. And then I also invested in an infrared sauna. And so that has been like, oh, I go sitting there, I'm detoxing, getting all the,
I've been
toxins out.
hearing those are just
Yes,
amazing. I've heard it
they
from 4
are.
different people
Oh my
recently.
gosh, they're so good. I was paying money and just going to a place when I lived up in Ohio. I would go like once a week, but then I was using it so much. Then I built it up like twice a week, and I was like, maybe I should just get my own because the 30-minute drive one way, is an hour in the car. And it really wasn't that as expensive as I thought it would be. But that to me, it's like I put on my meditation music. So I love what you said, tracks to relax. I'm gonna have to look that up.
Yeah, I love that one. And it's really
Yeah,
good for sleeping too. It just, the
right.
second I turn it on, I'm
Yeah.
out.
Oh my gosh. That's how I am with Netflix. So no, I don't watch TV except for right before I go to bed. I don't have my phone in the room, but I do have a TV on. And as soon as I put on something, I'm usually out about 10 minutes. But yeah, and then also just like taking a bath. That is something. And then lately, I also like just the power of like essential oils. Like there's some certain essential oils like the peppermint. I was telling you before we started that I'm in the middle of a 5-day water fast. So today I'm almost done through day 3, but just using a little bit of peppermint oil or whatever has just been kind of calming out. I read that in my little support group. And so, yeah, I said all of that. So those are just my things I was going to add in. But
Yeah, no, that's great. And there is one grounding exercise that's really good that I could share. People
oh,
have probably
yeah.
seen it online, and you could do it. So it's 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So you could do
Oh
it in
yeah,
different ways. Have you seen that? Like,
Mel Robbins kind of thing, her book or whatever.
oh, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Maybe she has used that. But yeah, 5 things. So to ground yourself, look around the room, name 5 things that you see,
Okay.
name 4 things that you could hear,
Oh, cool.
3 things that you could feel around you, 2 things
Oh,
that you can smell or want to smell, and 1 thing that you taste or want to taste. So that's a way to just ground you into the present moment, just looking
yeah.
around you in the moment and the present moment where you are.
Yeah, that's so good. That's not what hers is, but that's
Oh, okay.
also
Yeah, I
good.
wasn't sure.
No, I love that. Well, and that's like a tangible strategy that anyone listening right now, you guys can take that away. And, I know when I was going through my breast implant illness, I was having constant panic attacks. My whole adrenals and cortisol systems were all out of whack just because of the toxicity. But and so it was one of those things where, yeah, I mean, that's a great strategy. So I think a lot of people will benefit from that. So thank you so much for adding that in.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
Yes. Well, I just love your energy, Desiree. And I just think you've provided so much value today. And like I mentioned when we were talking, I always love to give like the last little chunk of time to just anything else that maybe wasn't a question, or maybe, now since we've talked, you're like, okay, I have this on my heart. I want to share this to really just make a difference with our listeners. So I'd love to just give you a few minutes to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there is still a lot of stigma out there about mental health, but just know that it's completely, there's nothing wrong with you if you're struggling with your mental health. I'm a therapist that struggles with anxiety, so it's completely okay and normal, and there is help out there, and just podcasts like this that are spreading awareness. I mean, it's so important. And just make yourself knowledgeable, because I just actually on my podcast interviewed somebody yesterday that they were struggling for almost 2 years with all these physical symptoms. They were going to different doctors and they had no idea that it was actually their mental health. So
Mm.
just educate yourself, look things up, read up on different things about mental health, and just know that there is help out there. There's all these different options, and it's never been easier. I mean, there's still a lot of issues, trust me, in the mental health field and making it easily accessible to people, but it's never been easier than now, to get help with your mental health. And I do work with a lot of teens and kids, and they're so open about their mental health. They're like, oh, I'm going to my therapist. I see a therapist. I'm really struggling with anxiety. And people are just becoming so much more open about it now, which I think is great. So you don't have to be afraid to share your mental health struggles, and there is help out there for you. And it all starts with that awareness and education. So don't be afraid to educate yourself a little bit on maybe what's going on with your different mental health struggles.
Yeah, that's so good. Well, and it's just interesting you mentioned your friend, and again that kind of just takes me back to when I had breast implant illness. I thought I was losing my mind. I had never had anxiety, and then all of a sudden I'm having anxiety attacks, and had all these crazy symptoms. I'm going to all of these different doctors. No one could figure out what was wrong with me. All of my blood work was coming back normal, but it was just through a brave woman that asked me if I had breast implants. And that led me into a support group on Facebook with almost 100,000 sick women who also, were, about felt like they were losing their mind too. And so, just my point in that too is that, I learned through that journey about a genetic mutation. I don't know if you're familiar with this, Desiree, but it's called the MTHFR mutation. And so basically, like some of us, and it's actually about a 40%, so almost 1 in 2 people, we have this genetic mutation called the MTHFR, which means that our bodies don't detox as efficiently as someone else. And that's what happened to me, is that my bucket got full, and it was because I had breast implants and I had all these old amalgam fillings. I had a metal dental implant put in. And so basically, long story short, is that it basically overflowed my bucket, and it turned on these genetic expressions, which created anxiety, which created just not feeling like I was in my own skin and all these other health issues. And once I removed the source of toxicity, which for me was the breast implants and all of the dental work, I actually went to New York City. My dentist is in New York. So I've been to him a lot of times, Dr. Curatola. He's amazing. He's a bioidentical dentist. And so through removing some of that toxicity, I literally woke up from surgery. I've never had a panic attack since. All my anxiety completely went away. And so I just felt called to share that here at the end, because sometimes people, of course, yes, go to your doctor, get a therapist, just like you said, but sometimes there might be a root cause
Yes.
that, could be leading to that. And especially today, we are just exposed to a lot of toxins. And so, it just doesn't hurt, to maybe look into like a naturopath or a holistic type doctor as well, to have some testing done with maybe mold or heavy metal toxicity.
And
Because,
thyroid as well. Thyroid
yes,
issues cause a lot of mental health issues.
yes, yes. So sometimes, I thought it'd be important to put a little plug for that, that sometimes,
Absolutely.
that it might be these toxins that are, can create. I know a good friend of mine, he literally thought he was losing his mind. And it turned out to be mercury poisoning that really impacted his mental state. So, anyways, I just would feel guilty if I didn't share that, because that's,
No, yeah,
part
it's
of
so
my story
true.
too. But anyways, well, thank you so much, Desiree. And I just like stole your spot in sharing the last truth bomb. So
No,
I'm gonna
no,
give you,
that's great.
I'm gonna give you one more last word. And so anything else you want to share? And then also, how can people like follow you, connect with you? I know you said you've got a lot of great resources and how you help people and add value. They will be in the show notes, you guys, but I'm also going to have her share on here. So any other last thoughts? And then how can people connect with you?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm always talking about self-care. So again, it's so important. So get that self-care in, whatever that looks like for you. So I always advocate for that and builds those strong boundaries. So important. So you can find me. I'm mostly in my Facebook group. So you can definitely find me in there. It's a mental health and wellness Facebook group. It's a really good community in there, very supportive and encouraging. So I love that. I'm in there pretty much every day. So that's facebook.com/groups/according to Des. And I know that'll be in the show notes. I do have a website, accordingtodes.com. I do have mental health blogs on there and some interviews. And I do have my own podcast as well, The Wellness Project with Des. And funny, we were talking about it before, but how animals positively impact your mental health. That episode is coming out in 2 weeks. Actually, I have an episode about animals and mental health. So you can find me on there as well. And I'm also on Instagram and TikTok as well. So I know you'll have all those links. So
Awesome. Oh my gosh. Well, I know people are going to be eating all of that up and excited to just continue to learn from you. And again, just thank you so much for your time today. I know you're a busy lady and you got a lot of things going on, but just I know our listeners and viewers really appreciate you today just being on here. So thank you again for just not only your wisdom, but also, like I said, I think you've just given us some really great strategies and tools that we can use, in our lives to help us with mental wellness. So thank you so much.
yeah, no, thank you so much. This has been really great.
Oh, you're so welcome. Well, thank you guys so much again for tuning in today. And again, like I said at the beginning, if there's someone on your heart that you're like, oh, they're just really struggling right now, and I think this would be a great podcast to share with them, please do that, because that's how we're going to be able to help more people. And again, I hope this episode today helped you take ownership of your health at a very, I think, much needed level that is so important. So huge thanks again to Desiree, and thank you so much to all of you guys, and have a wonderful rest of the day, friends.